Hi there, and thank you for joining me for today's live reading of War of Destiny 3 Between Darkness and Light by Theresa van Spankeren, and this is presented by Itsy Bitsy Book Bits. Prologue. My name is Julia Smith. 75 years ago, I was married to a man named Gregory. He had been a cruel and violent man. One night, he murdered our daughter and nearly killed me, altering my life forever. I was rescued by a vampire named Samuel, the leader of the vampire resistance. They desire to interact with humans more normally than just using them as a food source. I agreed to join his group to overthrow the king of the vampires, Valentino. In doing so, I was reunited with my soulmate and childhood love, Adam. We learned that our group was different from others. We were ka-tet, souls bound by destiny for a purpose. I was happy. The eight of us were like family. Besides Adam and Samuel, there were Samuel's older fledgling Matthew and his soulmate Christy. There were also Marianne and Jeffrey, who had become part of the ka-tet long before we did. Finally, we had been joined by Samuel's teacher, Valerie, who wasn't ka-tet, but was as close as anyone else could be. A few years ago, everything changed. Valentino came after us, determined to eliminate the threat to his power. Our only warning came to me through a dream from a 10-year-old human girl named Kali. Valentino kidnapped and tortured Matthew. When we fought, it was a disaster. We rescued Matthew, but we both lost our soulmates. And that wasn't even the worst part. I had been able to see into the future before, but when I needed it the most, my power inexplicably failed. Instead, I had nightmares with voices that insisted I was the one who had bungled everything because I had really wanted my group dead. Eventually, I started to believe the voices. And when Gregory appeared to me for the second time since becoming a vampire, he backed up those claims. It's hard to explain why I did what I did. I betrayed my ka-tet to Valentino. I nearly destroyed everything I loved. I had killed Jared, a member of the Resistance's council and a friend. I had attacked Samuel and almost killed him. I heard a female voice then that reminded me that this wasn't who I wanted to be. Was it my conscience, as I believed? I don't know. I thought I saw my dead bastard of a husband. Does that make me insane? I honestly don't know the answer to that either. Chapter 1. 5 years later, I found my situation only slightly changed. I had explained to Marianne and Jeffrey about seeing Gregory again, and they had accepted my account warily. I did not tell them about the voices or dreams. Having attempted to tell Samuel about it several times, I had learned to keep the information between Kali and me. All three of them believe my sanity is fragile at best, although I suspected Samuel thought I was completely insane now. Marianne and I talked regularly, while Jeffrey barely spoke to me. It was she who was teaching me Italian. I found out quickly that no one in Florence spoke English. In reality, they thought anything English was pretty much venom. Matthew still wasn't living with us. About a year ago, he started coming by occasionally, but it was only to see Samuel, and they left soon after he arrived. I never tried to get close, fearing what reaction I might receive from him, especially considering that we were still connected through the ka-tet. Yes, that's right. 5 years later, members not speaking to each other, and the ka-tet still holds. I am sure Matthew's thrilled, considering any time he was at the villa, his thoughts were shielded. I could still pick up a stray emotion sometimes. If I truly wanted to, I probably could read some of his thoughts or track him with the ka-tet, but that hardly seemed worth the trouble. Truly, how could I damn him for not wanting to deal with me after what I had done? Samuel's and my relationship had continued to deteriorate. When we had arrived 5 years ago, he would still carry on a halfway decent conversation with me. Now, though, he rarely speaks to me at all. He would have been the logical choice to teach me and the children Italian, except Samuel had stubbornly refused. It was hard to believe he was still connected to us. Matthew shielded his thoughts quite well. Samuel shielded perfectly. Thoughts, emotions, all of it. Actually, it wasn't only me he did not talk to. He had withdrawn from everyone but Matthew. Tonight, I sat in my room as I usually did nowadays, staring at a wilted white rose I had placed on the table a few days ago. It was my tribute to my soulmate Adam, the anniversary of his death having passed seemingly unnoticed by anyone but me. With a sigh, I wiped a few tears from my cheek. I missed him terribly, although I questioned if I had any right to mourn after the destruction I had caused. For the millionth time, I wondered why the ka-tet was still intact and why I was still alive. A soft knock startled me out of my maelstrom of dark thoughts. It echoed through the empty villa. Nobody was home tonight. They had all left shortly after sunset, separately. Other than Stephen, who was going to a tavern, I had no idea where any of them went. I was not privy to that information anymore. Julia, are you awake? Yes, I answered as I recognized Kali's voice. She was now 15 and had turned into a slender, pretty young woman. Neither I nor the others quite knew what to think of her because, despite her age, she seemed more like our equal in both maturity and, to a lesser degree, in power. My door opened a little and Kali slipped inside, carefully closing it behind her. She turned to me, studied the rose on my end table, and sat down on my bed. How are you feeling? I glanced at her from the chair in front of the table. I'm alive, I answered with a sigh. She smoothed the skirts of her simple black dress and said, thinking of Adam again, I see. A couple yellowish petals came off in my hand as I shrugged. There was no point in answering her. She already knew. What do you want, Kali? I questioned tiredly. Have you had any more dreams, or have you heard the voices again? I closed my eyes and thought, there's the Kali I know. There have been all business when what I really want is a friend. No, Kali, there have been no dreams or voices, at least, not dreams like that. Have you had any strange dreams lately? Turning in my chair, I glared into her gray eyes. I have only had dreams about my own foolhardiness. I can assure you, I am perfectly sane at the moment. I never said you were not sane, Julia. You were the only one, I mumbled as I watched her. She was still, her hands clasped in her lap. She smiled slightly, her posture relaxed as she regarded me in turn. Have you tried to explain the dreams and voices to one of the other vampires? You know I have. Samuel thinks I'm even crazier afterwards. Have you ever considered that you're trying to explain it to the wrong person? I'm quite certain Marianne and Geoffrey would be inclined to agree with Samuel if I try, I replied and picked up the half-dead rose again. My thoughts drifted back to the last time I remembered being happy, the last time Adam and I had danced together at the White Hart Inn. If I closed my eyes, I could almost feel his hands on mine. Julia? I looked blankly at Kali as I realized I had missed what else she had said entirely. What if you tried? Tried what? I'm sorry, my mind was somewhere else, I replied. Kali frowned slightly. What if you tried talking to Matthew about it? Studying her face, I waited for the laugh, a trace of a smile to show she was jesting. The expression on her face remained solemn, the frown deepening. Good Lord, the girl was serious. And they think I'm the insane one. I matched her frown. How much wine did you have tonight, Kali? You are either drunk or more delusional than I am. Neither, I am afraid, she answered. I tightened my right hand and felt rather than heard a soft squishing sound. When I opened it, there was a whitish yellow pulp where the rose used to be. I dropped it back on my small table. That would be the most futile attempt of them all, I said with a scowl. Matthew has not talked to me in 5 years. There's no way he will now. He does not have to talk. He only has to listen. Matthew is not going to listen. He did not want to hear anything I had to say then. He is not going to want to now. He despises me, and I honestly cannot blame him, I whispered. Why are you insisting that I explain that to someone? If what I suspect is true, you need help learning to control your abilities, Julia. If you suspect this is a power of mine, why don't you teach me? Cully sighed as if she was explaining something to a child who did not understand. I hate it when she sounds like that. Julia, I realize you seem to believe I know everything, but I do not. I think I have figured out what your gifts are, but I haven't the faintest idea how to teach you to use them safely. One of your ka-tet would have a better idea than me. Sharp pain lanced across my forehead, and I winced and rubbed it. If you have it figured out, why don't you explain it to one of them? There was a moment of silence, and I glanced up at her. Her expression told me everything I needed to know. You already tried and failed, I presume. I've tried to discuss it with Samuel. I did not get very far, she said. I snorted and replied, Yet you somehow think I should talk to Matthew about it? Forget it. He has more right to hate me than anyone else since I nearly turned him back over to the people who had tortured him. Why would he listen to me? Why would he even care? He is different than Samuel, and time may have given him a new perspective. He can help you. You and he are still connected through the ka-tet. You should try, Julia. About that. Why are we still connected? Why do you think Matthew will not only listen, but help me when he has the least reason to? The expression on Kali's face changed, became unreadable. Your destiny is still entwined with theirs. I see what I see, Julia. What is it you see, Kali? I asked. She shook her head. Could I see it too? Again, she shook her head. I glared at her and tried to read her mind to no effect. Just try to tell him, she repeated. Frustrated, I rubbed my temples, oblivious to the mush of flour still in my one hand. I am tired. It is time for you to leave. It is barely 3 hours past sunset. So? My head hurts, and there's nothing better for me to do but sleep. Her eyes narrowed to smoky gray slits. When did you feed last, Julia? Get out, I snarled and pointed to the door. Kali sighed, rose gracefully, and left my room.